He may just be a staple of these videos now. So as he snoozes, let me tell you a little bit about this unit that I want to practice building out. So one of the things that I've gotten a lot of requests for is give me some more examples of what a unit planning process might look like, or what this unit plan might look like building out of a project question. So often what we will do in my curriculum bootcamp events are we focus a really long time on getting a really good project or driving question that's going to frame the unit. And then it's like, okay, we don't have a ton of time to go from there, because in my brain, it just kind of like happens, right? You just kind of like build it out. But I was like, I realized in talking to a lot of teachers in those moments that we need, and us as leaders, right? As educators, we need as teachers, right? But also as leaders and coaches of teams or department leads, we need to also be able to coach teachers and teams to think about how to take that project question and how to make it happen in a unit arc. So I'm just going to do a bunch of these types of videos where I kind of go through and do a sample unit arc from a driving question. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. And today's question is really exciting. It is from an actual department, a U.S. history team, who came up with this for one of their units. What's more important, safety or freedom? Here we go. Use the same doc that we used in the last video to unpack the difference between the build the base phase and the case studies phase. If you didn't watch last week's video, feel free to check that out if that is a helpful framework. Now we're going to dive in, and I'm just graying these out because I think it's more important that we build out these three. Here's why. When we plan for a unit, and we specifically plan to co-construct with students, which is student voices at the heart of everything that I think is good and engaging, we often have this piece that's hyper co-created by students. Students are at the forefront of leading what exactly the work looks like, how it's presented, how they're publishing it, and they're leading the reflection of how the unit went. So there's not a ton to plan for there aside from some logistical things. We have our project question, what's more important, safety or freedom, and we have a sense of the project. So I envision, and the team who envisioned this was thinking they would advocate for a local policy. It could be school or community-wide. Could be state or national as well, but it considers the balance of safety and freedom. So the analysis of safety and freedom has to go into their proposal for a new or revised or removal of a policy. So let's look at these three phases, which are the three that I want to focus on whenever I build with teachers. We want to build these three, and the rest is really co-constructed. A lot of this can be co-constructed as well, but I just want to kind of think about it very specifically today. So when we're looking at this, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to insert a column to the right. There we go. That's not too bad. So this would be like our content. I often call this the green lights, which I get from DESE, the DOE in Massachusetts here. They talk about in the social studies department, the green light being what you absolutely need to know to move on. So it is kind of the main idea. Of course, we might talk about more things. So here I might bring up a local policy. So whatever is local or modern, like something that's happening. So this could take the form of like a video. That's going to be my text. And then we're going to discuss it maybe in a circle protocol. Then what I would do is I would say, okay, so we're going to be talking a lot about safety and freedom. Like, what do we even think about safety or freedom? Like, let's actually answer the project question right now without any sort of grounding, like academic grounding. Like what's your opinion? So here I might do a discussion. Let's do a human barometer discussion. So that's where students would stand on one side or another, agreeing or disagreeing with some various statements. So I might literally just have them do one statement, and this is personal kind of opinion. In ELA, sometimes they call these like anticipation guides, where students are kind of thinking about their values, which are in relation to the values and conflicts and things you'll learn about when you read the book. So kind of, I like this grounding in multiple scenarios like this history unit. So personal opinion, you're just kind of getting students engaged, right? It's hooking them in. So you're saying, hey, there's local context that we should be thinking about policy. And like, what's your opinion on this? Like, is safety or freedom more important, and why? So students would kind of take a stance on that question either before or after discussion. So you can get like a visual of like where students stand. Helpful to note and kind of identify how many people are standing in each space. And then by the end of the unit, you kind of take stock again. Okay, build the base. We are talking about core text and foundational knowledge here. So this idea of safety or freedom is absolutely going to be critical. So when we think about safety or freedom, what I might do is take a look at like some language of the Constitution. Maybe that's like one day. I might even look at some early correspondence or like constitutional convention language or something around like the purpose of a government. But that may be kind of like extra. But like, again, let's get to the core. So this is kind of what happens, right? When we're building out a unit, we're like, okay, no, what is the absolute core? So possibly the Constitution. Obviously it's large, so we would want to take a couple sections, and I would get clear on that. As I'm thinking about it more, yeah, the Constitution is good, but I also, you know what? Let's look at the Declaration. And then we can take a look at the Constitution. Specifically, though, you know what I would do? I would specifically take a look at the Bill of Rights, because there's so many like freedoms there. And I may like do a little bit of history here around the addition of the Bill of Rights as a compromise to the larger Constitution. Like I might give some context there depending on what students are familiar with, depending on what grade level you're teaching this at and what prior knowledge they have. But I think that would be really interesting. So then what we can do here is we can add a couple more days with the same documents, or we can add a couple more documents here. And then what I would do is I would have either a circle conversation, maybe let's do a Socratic seminar. I really like those. Or we could do a write around if your students aren't super verbal. And then I'm actually going to hop down here to just know I'm going to repeat the Socratic seminar in another week or so. Week and a half maybe. So you'll see that I like doing text-based protocols and then a discussion as a synthesis. So you kind of have this phase of build the base and then you synthesize. And you have this phase of case studies and applications and then you synthesize. And so I kind of like that before they go into each of the next phases. So, okay, let's say that we are going to spend actually like a bunch of days unpacking the Bill of Rights. So we're getting some foundational documents and some history in here. We might focus on a couple different like rights in each day. And I could like parse that out later. But for the sake of brevity of this video, we'll do that. And then the case studies. So we might do a like Supreme Court case that analyzes like, some of these. I mean, I could think of several. So let's do maybe like Supreme Court case. You know what, actually, I'm thinking, okay, what if we did Supreme Court case and then modern impact, or like maybe not even modern impact, but historical and modern. So like Supreme Court case around a particular right or a particular freedom, safety kind of conundrum. All right. So we do maybe 2 Supreme Court cases that are really important and 2 government decisions, or, parse that out however you want. And, this could be really long. Like I said, it would be, however many 10 days or whatever. It could definitely be longer. We could have the majority of the unit be case studies. I think with a unit like this that's surrounding this question, we want to see as many cases as possible. So you would pick your Supreme Court cases or your government decision. And then what I'm envisioning for impact is like, it's text-based, but maybe it's like a gallery walk. So whereas this text-based, this might be like looking at like the decision itself. You're looking at like the court decision, and you're doing like a stop and jot or like a jigsaw, because they're going to be pretty big in some cases, or like an annotation protocol, and then you gallery walk. Okay, so we're going to do back and forth, like get the info, and then we're going to do a gallery walk. And this gallery walk I'm envisioning is like a bunch of data, like data from like right after, like maybe before and after the decision, maybe like modern today, what are the impacts? And it's going to be just like a bunch of like data points, like maybe they're graphs, maybe they're maps, maybe they're different things. And we have kind of the question of like, what was the impact of that decision? So we decide each day, was the decision about increasing safety or increasing freedom? And what was the impact? Was it positive? Was it negative? It's often going to be mixed, right? And so I think that would be super cool. And then at the Socratic seminar, you're going to bring this question back. What's more important, safety or freedom? And now you have all this evidence of the impact and the decisions themselves and what they prioritized to be able to use in that discussion. A little bit longer than 5 minutes, but I wanted to show you the process and also the decision points where it's like, no, that doesn't make sense. Let me change my mind. So coaching around this, there's a lot of teachers who are going to be not comfortable with getting things on the page right away. They're going to want to potentially say like, oh, well, here, take out my prior curriculum map. Here's how I taught this, in what order. Here's all the stuff I want to cram in, because that's always been part of our, this type of unit or this era. But what we really want to do, I think, is go with a less is more approach and start, if that happens, with, okay, what are the 3 most important decisions that have ever been made in U.S. history that relate to this concept of safety and freedom that you would want students to know because it's relevant for them to understand the concepts, and say, if you could only choose 3 or only choose 5 or whatever, and then kind of like have them fill it in. They could always go back in and fill in other things, but less is more. I think that's the framing. That's an example. Share it with the team. I hope this is helpful.